What's up, everybody? We're back, the Lattimore Performance Podcast. It has been a minute. A lot has happened since the last time we were on. I think the last time we were on was mid-April after our trip to San Francisco. Things got busy. My wife and I had 4 or 5 weddings in a 4-week span. Portugal, San Francisco. So we were crazy. We're doing a solo pod today, just myself, so you got to listen to me talk. So I wanted to come on today. I have not had a lot of time. We haven't talked about it much since the beginning. I think my intro, I said that I was training for Happy Valley Ironman 70.3, and that officially happened a week and a half ago now. I finished. So I just wanted to recap how the training went, recap the race for everyone, give you a little sense of where I'm at. Then we have some really exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks that we're going to release some stuff. Yeah, I want to dive right into, recap the race specifically a little bit leading up to the race. And then I had a lot of mental growth, so I wanted to touch on that, and we'll go from there. First of all, this is my first solo podcast, and I've never thought about talking to myself like this for so long, so bear with me. I hope you guys enjoy it. Drop some feedback in the comments. So 2 weekends ago, June 30th, Happy Valley, back home, got up there on Friday afternoon with Haley, my wife. Met up with our buddy Aaron that's from State College, did a little bit of grocery shopping. All went smoothly. 2 of the other guys from tribal training, the group that I joined for training, were also participating in the race. So Saturday morning I got up, we had an athlete briefing, and then also did our bike check-in. So I got to meet them for the first time. This is the first time I've ever met them. We had communicated in a group chat, talked on the phone a couple times, but this was the first time I ever met them. So that was really cool. Shout out Trevor and Matt. They were awesome, instrumental in getting me through this race. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But it was really cool. Ironman Village was awesome. Weather wasn't great on Saturday. It rained on and off, but the forecast looked gorgeous, should I say, for Sunday. Whether you want it to be that gorgeous for an endurance event, I don't know. But yeah. So it rained on and off on Saturday. I dropped my bike off at Bald Eagle State Park. It's about 25 miles from State College in the stadium where we finish. And I got to get a little swim in, make sure my goggles were all fitted. It felt great. The water was so warm. It was 77 degrees. My one training swim I did in Keuka Lake. I swam across the lake and back, and it was all of 55 degrees. So I wore a wetsuit, and anytime you stuck your face in the water, it was like a shock to the system. So 77 felt incredible. And then I just chilled the rest of Saturday. So wake up at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday, go downstairs, get some breakfast in me, kind of just start getting anxious. I'm ready to rock. I know I've done most of my training, and I feel prepared at this point. I'm as prepared as I can be. I'm ready to just get in the water. So I make myself some breakfast, get some electrolytes in, and my parents get up, my wife gets up, Aaron meets us at the house. We drive over to Bald Eagle State Park, do some last tune-ups to our transition bag from the swim to the bike. So there's 2 transition spots at Ironman Happy Valley. If you don't know, in triathlons, you do transitions to change from your swim gear to your bike gear and then bike to run. So the transition 2 in State College is in right next to the stadium where we end up finishing, but transition 1 is out at Bald Eagle State Park, which is like 30 miles outside of State College. So I get everything set Sunday morning, have everything ready, laid out for when I get out of the water, and then we hang out for a little bit, and it's time. We do the national anthem. The nerves are starting to kick in, but I'm ready to just dive in the water. It was 75 and humid, so the water actually felt incredible. I get in the water, really no issue. We got in early, started early, and I finished the swim in 43 minutes. Didn't have any issues in the water, felt really comfortable, really good. I swam on the outside. And then we go to transition one. I see my parents and my wife waiting for me out of the water. I take about, I think it was 7-ish minutes, and get my bike. Feel really, really comfortable on the bike for the first 14 miles. In training, I had never really done anything beyond like a 15 mile an hour average. So that was a point of anxiety for me before the race. Because if you average around 15, you're just under 4 hours. And I was hoping to finish in that 4-hour range on the bike to give me enough time to get through the run. We crushed the first 14 miles. I averaged like a 17 mile an hour clip. And then things go straight downhill from here. There's a big climb at like mile 25 that I get absolutely crushed by. And we come down it, and my legs are fried. I start cramping. Hamstrings, quads, it all starts cramping. And we're on mile 28 of the bike, and I need to go 56. It was a grind. I had been on top of my nutrition on the bike. I had bottles. I had honey stinger waffles, and it all caught up to me. So I had to grind it out. I went in with this idea that I was just going to continue to put one foot forward the whole race. I wasn't going to stop. I was going to be able to finish as long as I kept moving forward. So despite some cramping, I did have to get off my bike a lot and walk up some hills, walk to some aid stations, walk off the cramps. It was pretty brutal. But I never stopped moving, and I was really proud of myself for that. It was something that I struggled with tremendously in training of if things weren't perfect, it was either a 0-0 sum game. So for me to go into the bike, hit mile 28, and everything kind of just go off track, bouncing back to get through that bike was technical difficulties there. Anyway, proud of myself. I pushed through the bike. Like it was so hard. Fortunately for me, it took me 4 hours and 47 minutes to finish the bike. We had 3,800 feet of elevation, which from everything I've heard is absolutely insane for a 70.3 to climb that much. That's more than some of the full Ironman out there. So that crushed me. My legs were not prepared for that. And it set me up for a really, really hard decision. Finished coming up University Drive at Penn State. For those of you that don't know, it is a slow climb to the finish after 55 miles of brutal up and downs and one straight 3-mile, 5% grade. My legs were shot. It was getting hot. The sun was coming out. We were dying. And I started going up this last hill, and I had to walk twice off my bike in the last 2 miles, or last mile. And every ounce of my being was like, dude, that's your race. You're done. You are not going to be able to make it through this run, let alone get off the bike and actually run. But I made it up the hill, made it into transition 2, and I literally just put my head down. I heard my parents, I heard Haley, I heard Aaron yell at me, and I did not acknowledge them whatsoever. I put my head down, I got off the bike when they told me to, and I almost fell over right there because my legs cramped. But I walked it off, walked to my spot transition, literally head down the whole time, threw on my running shoes, threw on my bib, number 22, which we'll go into that in a second, but number 22 is kind of cool to have that number as a former Penn State football player. Frank Cappelletti, number 22, Penn State's only Heisman winner. So that was a cool thing. But anyways, I just say to myself, dude, just keep going. Just get out of transition 2. And if you can do that, we'll see what happens. So I managed to get my shoes on. I poured 2 cups of water over my head, went to the restroom, and just went out the chute. So I think I hit transition 2 in like 4.5 minutes. I saw my parents on the way out of the chute to run the 2 laps around campus. So the first one goes back down University after climbing up it, which you think would be awesome to go downhill. But my quads were so shot, and running downhill after all that just made things worse. So I ran like a super slow first mile, got to the first aid station, had some food, had a little bit of water, and that really revived me. I ended up switching the face on my watch so it would give me the lap time. And I looked at it and I said, dude, walk, run, however you do it, try and keep your lap pace under 12 minutes. And I did for a while. So I got through the first lap, feeling really good, going down University again, coming back up by the football building, died a little bit, and managed to get through about 10-ish miles. And there's a cap on the race at 8.5 hours. So if you don't finish before 8.5 hours, and this is all I was thinking at the time, is you kind of you still get your finisher medal, but you can't qualify for age group standings, which I know I wasn't going to be in the top, but I still wanted to be under that 8.5 hours. So I figured out if I kept running at that pace, I was going to be able to do it. So I kept pushing, used the downhills to my advantage, some of the less steep downhills. I got to about 3 miles and I saw Trevor. I was like, dude, how you doing? Like, yeah, man, I feel pretty good. I get through another mile and the heat just absolutely crushes me out of nowhere. I get so hot and I am ready to quit. I'm like, dude, there's no way. I'm not making it. I do not have enough left in the tank. I needed to average, I think I slowed down enough that I needed to average like an 11:30 last mile and a half, and I could hardly run because my legs were cramping so bad. So I got to the Nittany Lion Shrine, and some dude said, oh, I got 38 minutes before I got time capped. I'm good. And I look at him and I'm like, bro, I got 14 minutes. I'm effed. And he says, oh, come on, bro. That's more than enough time. I was like, all right, let's give it our best shot. So we get through the next aid station. I don't drink anything. I pour 2 cups of ice cold water over my head, take my hat off, and I run as far as I can. I stop and walk. And every time I'm walking during this run, like I got the giddy up, man. I am not just lollygagging. Like I'm walking a 13.5-minute pace. So I find Trevor again, and we have a mile left, and I am like dying. But I somehow managed to find enough strength that I just keep looking at things in front of him, like get to the next crosswalk, and then you can walk a little bit. Get to that cone, you can walk a little bit. Get through the stoplight, you can walk a little bit. So finally I get close enough. I am like at the finish line, and I know I'm close. And you have to run right to the stadium, and then you go in and you finish on the 50-yard line. So I get up there, and I have to walk before I get in the stadium. And then all of a sudden, I can see it. I see the tunnel. We come off, go through the tunnel, shade. It was so cold in the tunnel. It was incredible. Then we come out into the stadium, and they have the chute where you come through. You go under the inflatable Ironman thing. And that was pretty sick. And like, I have no idea at this point what time I'm at. So I am just, I want to say sprinting. It felt like I was sprinting 100 miles an hour, but I certainly was not. Some of the pictures, you can see how much I'm struggling. And I just go head down and I do my absolute best. I'm like, I am making it through this before 8:30. So I cross the finish line and I am nothing left. They gave me a cold water and I look back and it says 8:28:36. So I finished with 1 minute and 24 seconds to spare. which felt so relieving. But I was still smoking hot. So I saw like they had the horse trough things full of water bottles. But at the time, I'm like, dude, is that an ice bath? Apparently no one heard me because no one responded. But I walk over and I'm literally about to just jump in with everything on. And I see all the water bottles. I'm like, okay. So they hand me my medal, which I got right here. Boom. We did it. 70.3 miles. I finished under the time cap for the whole race. Come to find out later, I still didn't qualify for the age group awards because you're supposed to finish the swim, transition 1, and the bike in under 5.5 hours, and I came at 5:40. Race recap. Great swim. I am so disappointed with how the bike turned out time-wise, but I am so proud of myself in the way I handled it. There was multiple times I wanted to quit, plenty of times where I could have quit, but I always kept moving forward, which was my goal going into the race. So we managed to get through that, and then the run was incredible. I ended up looking at my watch, and I think it took me just under 2 hours and 40 minutes to do the half marathon, which, considering everything I had done before and that I was cramping the whole time, I think I literally was a 50% run walk based on what my watch said and calculated. But I made up some serious time to be able to finish in under 8.5 hours. And I'm really, really happy that I pushed that last 1.5 miles. Shout out to whoever that dude was that said you can do it. And shout out to Trevor, because without him, I was not making it through that last 1.5 miles. But looking back on it, there were so many emotions in the day or two after of like, holy crap, like I did just do that. I was able to grind through that, and I pushed myself so much farther than I ever thought I was capable, which was kind of the goal of this whole race. And I'll kind of get into now more the mental growth and my wins from the last 6 months that kind of led me to mindset-wise of getting through this Ironman. We'll get a little vulnerable here. But I think this kind of ties back into how training went, how the race went. My whole training plan up to that was progress, not perfection. I was never perfect with training. Like I said earlier, we haven't done the podcast in 2.5 months because I have traveled like 12 out of 12 weekends leading up to this race, which, if you're planning, plan better, was not ideal. So that made it really difficult to keep up with my training plan. And I got really, really frustrated and down plenty of times leading up to the race. I think it was a Thursday before the race. I went for a bike ride. I'm like, all right, we're going to do a quick brick, which is a bike into a run, just to give some confidence into it. And I got absolutely torched. I felt terrible about it. I'm like, there's no shot. I'm not finishing this race. I talked to my coach. I've been working with a leadership coach, Allie. Shout out to her. She's been instrumental in where I'm at right now. I talked to our tribal coach, Jordan. He has also been instrumental in where my mindset has gone. But yeah, like I was in a place 10 days before this race where I was, nope, we're done. But they helped me realize, especially with that, just keep moving forward. If you're taking a step forward, you can't not finish. And that kind of was my whole training plan. It really boils down to that was my whole training plan. So I'm really happy about that. Really happy how that all worked out. And the other thing, like I guess, has come up in this whole thing of my why. Why did I want to do this race? And I've been asked multiple times by Allie, by Jordan. I always just said to be a better version of myself. And until the last month, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I was struggling to commit to my training, commit to some of the things that it required because, I never defined what that better version looked like. Um, and I've always been a guy that has just grinded through things. Like, I played college football. And to me, without Allie and without Jordan, I would have just said, I just did that. That's what this race was going to be. I was just going to do that. I signed up for it. I don't quit. Um, but if you look back on it, and I'm going to brag a little bit, um, shout out Allie and Jordan, you'd be proud of me for that, is I love to take things like that away from me. But like, I did do that. Like, I've done hard things before this race, before this training, and I just needed to find a way back to that. So talking through those things allowed me to grow and be like, dude, give yourself some credit. You've done a lot of hard things, and it's hard to take a step back when you're in the process. But I did, and I was able to see, like, holy crap, like, I've done a 4-hour ride, done multiple 9-10 mile runs. Like, I've done a full swim in 55-degree water in Cuca Lake. I've done all these things that have put me in a position. One 30-minute bike 10 days before your Ironman is not going to make or break what you do. So being able to take a step back, look at everything you've done, give yourself some credit, give yourself some grace. Every day is not going to be perfect. That's the type of progress that has really helped me. It helped me get through it. It helped me on race day because that all came up on race day. It was far from perfect. And I was able to put one step in front of the other. I stayed positive. I kept battling. Every time something got me down, like, I was able to fight through that. And I am just really, really proud of that. So what Allie and I did the Thursday before the race, we kind of did a wins call to talk about everything over the last 6 months, how far I have come, to give me and help me see and give myself credit for the things that I've done. I have reduced my golf handicap. Shout out to the golfers out there. I know how hard that is. And it hasn't been easy for me because I am very reactive on a golf course. So that to me is a huge win. It's one of my really big goals is I want to get better at golf. So to be able to do that in the process of all this mental growth, training for a half Ironman, that has been awesome. And a lot of it has happened in the last month. I did my 4-hour training here. We talked about that. Some of my goals outside of Ironman training that have helped me is to be one of the top sports PTs in Rochester. Part of that is this podcast, working with Teddy, getting to know the strength and conditioning side, being able to integrate all of that in the office. And I've gotten some referrals. The last 3, I guess, wins I want to talk about are I opened up my mind for growth. And I think that was really difficult for me, and it's difficult that I see in patients in the office too, and friends and family, is we have a lot of comfortable things that we go through in our life, and we find a routine that's comfortable. And you kind of get lost in that routine. I was lost in that routine, and that's where I found myself 6 months ago, and I signed up for an Ironman. And I had absolutely no plan. I wanted to be a better version of myself. But again, what did that mean? So throughout the process of talking to Allie, working with a leadership coach, working with a triathlon coach, because it's something that was not in my wheelhouse. Like, I've never done endurance. I've been a football player. I've done CrossFit, but the barbell is where my life revolves around. So opening up my mind to be able to do that and see different perspectives and allow people to talk me through, hey, look at how far you have come. Look at these things that you have done. It put everything in perspective and allowed me to really celebrate that race day wasn't just a race. It wasn't just another thing to check off. It was a celebration of all the hard work that I put in the last 6 months, all the things that I want to do. So that has been really cool for me to go through. The next thing on here is put myself in hard, vulnerable positions. I've had to be really open and honest with Allie and Jordan and Ryan and my wife, Haley, about what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, what from a business perspective, from a training perspective, from a life perspective, of what are my big goals in life and how am I going to get there? And what am I doing to hold myself back? And having those honest conversations are really hard, but they were super helpful. And I have so much more clarity since I've talked those through and talked to them about it, and setting what you almost feel like are unattainable goals, but then breaking them down into something smaller. We talked about it in our Habits podcast. I've put myself in this situation where I've set these big goals, but I've been able to break them down to 1 month at a time, 1 day at a time. How can I get 1% better in this goal today, so that I know that I'm making progress? And then I allow myself to fail and learn from it. That's the huge one. I've opened myself as I've never been someone that will say, like, I mean, no one likes to fail. No one puts himself out there to fail, but endurance was so far out of my wheelhouse. I signed up for something to be a challenge, and then I put myself in situations where Allie had sent out a message into one of our groups that said, hey, I'm doing my coaching. I need hours to get my degree. And I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do this. And now we've worked together for 3 months, and she's helped me tremendously. Thank you, Allie. And I know we still have so much work to continue to do. A lot of big goals that will come up in this podcast and we'll talk about. But being able to have people to help me reframe some of those times where I feel like I failed. There was multiple points throughout the process of this Ironman that I felt like I was failing at everything. And it was really more of a perspective of I just couldn't give myself credit for the things that I did do, and I was chasing that perfection that wasn't going to be there. I was working 48 hours a week. We were traveling every weekend. I was spending time with my friends. I was doing this. I was doing that. It's hard to do everything all at the same time and expect it to be perfect. So being able to reframe that really helped me. So I think putting yourself in a position to fail, but also to be okay with failing, to do things that are out of your comfort zone, it's only going to help you to grow. I think we have gotten to a point that we do things that are comfortable. It's easy. Getting on here tonight, I've literally put this off for 2 weeks. I was going to do a pre-race podcast and then a post-race podcast, but I let life get in the way because this is totally uncomfortable for me. I am not comfortable talking to myself, looking at myself in this camera right here. But I think it was important for me to, one, give myself a opportunity to explain and process everything that went down with the Ironman, the growth that I've had, to give myself some credit, and jump back into the podcast. I've been wanting to get this sucker back off the ground, and we have some cool stuff coming up, which I'll touch on here in a few minutes when we finish up. But I think giving myself that grace and the ability to fail has really helped me grow, learn, and I am truly a better version of myself sitting here today than I was 6 months ago. And I think Jordan put it really, really well, is that the last 2 years have been a crazy transition. And a lot of other people are out there in my same shoes, probably feeling the same way I am or was, is we're going through this huge period of transition, man. You're going from a college kid to getting a job, getting married, buying a house. All these things are crazy transitions and you get lost. And it's really easy to lose yourself in that process because I'm not going to be the same person that I was in college. You change and you evolve. Um, and that's really hard to do sometimes, especially when I really liked who I was in college. Um, but I really like who I am right now too. And I really like the growth that I've had over the past 6 months. But that all came because I put myself out there. I put myself in a hard situation. I had vulnerable conversations with people that, to be honest, before 6 months, I had no idea who Jordan even was. And he's helped me grow tremendously. I knew Allie in college, but we hadn't talked all that much since college. And we've had some really hard conversations, but she's helped me reframe that in my own mind and see that, these goals are all out there for me. I can go get it. So if, you're struggling, if, you want more, like it's out there. You just have to you have to be willing and commit to putting yourself in a position that may not be the most comfortable. That's okay. It's a process and it's not going to happen all in the first time or first thing you talk to. We're always here, Teddy and I. If anyone wants to reach out, have some conversations, we'll figure it out. We'll help you through some stuff. So those are my big takeaways. I think it's important there. Give yourself some grace, man. We're all just working through it. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think that's a huge piece to mental health, to growing as an athlete, to growing as a person, to growing as a husband, a father, mother out there, wife, to just growing as a contributing member of society is give yourself some grace. It's not always going to be perfect, but there's always opportunities to learn and grow. So that kind of sums up everything that I took from Ironman Happy Valley 70.3, other than go train some hills on the bike. You need it. But I have already signed up. I'm doing Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga May 19th next year with Tribal Training. We're doing it a team race. I'm really excited about that. I get to meet a lot of guys and gals that we've been in a group with for so long. So that's going to be really cool next year. And then Haley and I are running Loop the Lake, our first marathon in October, I think October 20th. So lots of stuff coming from a training perspective. And then the big news is starting next Thursday, I am starting a 6.5-week internship as a physical therapist with the Buffalo Bills for training camp. So we're going to kind of briefly touch on that next weekend, get the pod rolling with Ted back on, talk about expectations for the Bills internship, expectations of the podcast. We'll get into a little bit more of that next week. But we're happy to be back. We got some really cool stuff going. We got some golf to recap. We still have some cool guests that we want to get on. We apologize for being gone for so long. But we are happy to be back, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon. So stay tuned. And that is everything we got for you. So we will see you next time on the Lattimore Performance Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Drop some comments below. Give us a like. And we will see you soon. Have a great week.